surrender.
Skin boots on a Saturday night.
Hello guys, this is the Gaming Revolution here, and welcome back to an all-new Black Ops 3 Zombies Chronicles video. And today we're going to be discussing the location of Shangri-La, of which the discussion surrounding it has been recently re-sparked within the community. Now you're going to see that this video is completely all over the place, because there are so many arguments to either side, and there are so many counter-arguments to either side as well. This means that no point of view can be definitively proven. There are arguments on either side that cannot be disputed at all, which makes the location of Shangri-La very, very ambiguous. This makes it very, very hard to explain because of the fact that all of the facts surrounding the location are all over the place. But anyways, if you do go on to enjoy this video, by the end of it, make sure to drop a like down below. Let's try and go for 1,115 likes on today's video, as well as subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future upload here on the channel. Don't forget to turn notifications on to ensure furthermore that you never miss an upload. But with that all out of the way, let's get straight on in to the video. So the topic of the location of Shangri-La has recently been sparked back up by RadAustin27, and there's been a big discussion with Johnny J as well as Nick Saro. I will leave a link to all of the videos which you ought to be watching in this video's description if you want to go ahead and check them out. Now what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to make a big overarching summary of this entire discussion, starting from Shangri-La within Black Ops 1, and then I'm going to divulge into my own ideas and my own theories, because I have some ideas which make a lot of sense to me. Well, obviously they're going to make a lot of sense to me. They're my goddamn own ideas. Now I just want to say before I get into this that I think that Treyarch originally intended for Shangri-La to be on the Earth. However, as we've seen throughout the Black Ops 3 Zombies season, we've seen that Jason Blundell loves to play around with conspiracy theories and ideas that have been brought forth that may have not originally been true. For example, we have the bald man on the Ascension poster. I think that Treyarch originally intended for this just to be Richtofen, and it was just a mistake in the artwork that he was bald. That's my own personal opinion, but I think that Blundell saw this plot hole in the storyline and he decided to alter the storyline and retcon it to make it seem like it was originally always Gersh, even though I don't think that was the original intention. And I think we're going to see a similar thing here with the location of Shangri-La. I think they're going to play off a lot of people's conspiracy theories to fit the new narrative that they're going to portray within the future games. Now, as to why the location may not be on Earth, there is no answer to that. It's something which is unexplainable, and it's something which may not get an answer to for 2, 3, 4 games down the line. But this is a common theme with Treyarch. I mean, they've only just explained the bald man 6 years later after Ascension's release. So the location of Shangri-La may not make any sense to us now, but I'm sure it will get an answer further down the line. And as I said, Treyarch love to play off of these conspiracy theories. I mean, more evidence of this is that we now have the Space Dog Easter egg within Moon Remastered, which was just a wild conspiracy theory within the original Moon within Black Ops 1 that never really had any proof to it, but it's something that Treyarch thought was a fun idea, so they decided to play around with it within Black Ops 3 Zombies Chronicles. Alright, so as he said, I'm going to go over the whole discussion of the location of Shangri-La and all the theories and arguments against it before I get into my own ideas and theories, so let's jump straight into it. Now, the original discussion started when a tweet was put out by Jimmy Zielinski, who used to be the head of Zombies back in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, and obviously Jason Blundell took over in Black Ops 3, and he said the following: Shangri-La Mountains, ? To which another developer replied, Zombies' best kept secret. Since that tweet, people did some digging within the code, and they found that the texture file for the orangey mountains on Shangri-La within the code is codenamed GP_Z10_Mars_Vista_Cars. Now this led people to believe that possibly Shangri-La could be on Mars, or at least when you enter the Eclipse. Now when you enter the Eclipse within Shangri-La, you obviously travel back in time. Now it is more than possible that not only do you travel back in time, but you change your location. So the idea was that possibly when you travel back in time, the entirety of Shangri-La moves to Mars, to a prehistoric era of Mars, of which there may have been life on Mars and ancient civilizations. Obviously a lot of scientists believe that there used to be life on Mars, and Treyarch could run off this idea, and this would explain as to why you you can still breathe during the eclipse, and there is vegetation and plant life. Obviously, everything doesn't need to scientifically make sense because it is a video game after all. Now, the counter argument to this is that the moon seen within the eclipse within Black Ops 1 is the exact same texture as the moon seen within Der Riese, which points towards it being the same moon as on Earth, meaning that even during the eclipse, Shangri-La is still on Earth and that it does not move its location. Now, one could simply argue that maybe the reason why the texture for the moon on Shangri-La during the eclipse is the same as on Der Riese is that they were simply lazy. Now, when you enter the eclipse on Shangri-La, the skyline also changes and there is now 2 moons. Now, this again would align with the idea of when the eclipse happens, you could travel to Mars, because on Mars there are actually 2 moons. Now, if you were trying to argue that it is actually on Earth, then you could simply say that the second moon per se is just an asteroid or a meteor. So pre-Zombies Chronicles, a lot of people were sort of pushing away the idea of Shangri-La being on Mars. They just felt like it was too much of a far-fetched theory. People were sort of split on the idea of whether Shangri-La is on Mars or it's on Earth. There was too much evidence for either side of the argument, and I think now with the release of Zombies Chronicles, I think looking back, as I said, I think it was originally intended to be on Earth, but Chake sort of put these hinters towards it being on Mars here purposely just to get the discussion going, and I think now with Zombies Chronicles they're going to try and retcon it. As I said, I am almost 100% that it is on Earth pre-eclipse, but I think post-eclipse the location changes. So with the release of Zombies Chronicles, the reason why this discussion has started to spark back up again is because now when you enter the eclipse within the Shangri-La Easter egg, instead of it being just the standard moon from Der Riese, or in this case it would have been from the Giant or Der Eisendrache, since there were already moons present on both of those maps, so they could have simply reused those textures. Now when you enter the eclipse within the Easter egg, they've instead created an entirely new texture for the eclipse, and it doesn't even seem to be a moon anymore. It's either a massive asteroid of some sort, or it's some sort of broken up or fractured moon. Now, there is no way to argue against the fact that Shangri-La mustn't be on the Earth during the eclipse, or at least within the Shangri-La remastered version within Zombies Chronicles. I think you are being naive to try and even disprove this. Treyarch have changed this for a reason. As he was saying earlier, they have been known to play off our own conspiracy theories. Now, what is interesting is that when you enter the eclipse within the Zombies Chronicles version, there are no longer 2 moons present, and there is just the singular moon, which, as I said, is different from the Earth's moon. Now, the fact that there are no longer 2 moons present during the eclipse is very peculiar, because if Treyarch went through the effort of changing the moon for the eclipse to obviously spark the discussion of it possibly being on Mars, you would have thought that they would have kept the 2 moons in. Is this Treyarch trying to tell us that within the Zombies Chronicles version of Shangri-La, during the eclipse we go to a different location that's not on the Earth, but it's not on Mars either? I'm not really too sure, but this is where I'm going to jump into my own theory in a second. Now, we obviously know that Shangri-La takes place in an unknown mountain range, and I think that it's definitely on Earth pre-eclipse. As you were saying earlier, there's just too much stuff that points towards it being on Earth. Now, we know that the explorers Brock and Gary, who went to Shangri-La, were searching for a temple to prove the existence of Agartha. Now, unfortunately, this led to their demise when they triggered the eclipse and were both killed by zombies one after the other. And we know from the Zetsubo no Shima cipher that reads as follows: "Urgent telegram, we have just received word that the private plane carrying the expedition encountered a freak atmospheric event which caused it to crash, killing all on board, including the famous explorers Brock and Gary. This comes weeks after an owner announcement fight about the location of Shangri-La." So we know that's what happened to Brock and Gary within the Zetsubo no Shima fracture. Now, obviously, our characters then come along and end up stuck in a reoccurring loop. Now, in order to break this loop, they have to go back in time via the eclipse, and they need to complete puzzles in order to go back to the future to eventually escape this loop. This is similar to the big overarching loop that we see repeat on Revelations. Okay, so before I hop into my own theory, which I'm going to be jumping into, again, this whole video is a theory. I mean, maybe it is on Earth. It could be completely off the ball. So obviously we got a brand new moon loading screen before Black Ops 3 Zombies released. And on this brand new moon loading screen, we saw that in the bottom right hand corner, that instead of there being Griffin Station, there was now a image of Samantha holding a teddy bear, and it was very quickly found out that this image fits identically into the Shangri-La loading screen. Now there are various other changes to the New Moon loading screen from its original, and I have made whole videos breaking down the entire loading screen in the past. But we can see that now Samantha is in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, that a shadow is no longer present on the moon. Now the reason why I brought this up is because, as I said, this New Moon loading screen fits into the Shangri-La loading screen. However, it still fits to the original Moon loading screen, and from this we can see that the skyline on the original as well as the New Moon loading screen is identical to that of the skyline on Shangri-La. It's the exact same. Now what could this mean? I have brought this up in countless videos in the past, but no one, I mean no one in the community seems to be talking about this, and I don't know why. This must be huge. There is no logical explanation to explain why the skyline of the moon and the skyline of Shangri-La are the same. They should be completely different, yet they are the same. Now this makes no sense, because surely Shangri-La cannot be on the moon. Surely it wouldn't make any sense. Again, the whole map's vegetated and you can breathe. Even if we just teleported to the moon during the eclipse, it still wouldn't make any sense just for that reason. But please, someone in the comment section tell me a logical reason as to why the skyline is identical to Shangri-La and on the moon. This is huge, it has to be. We can even see the temple floating off in the distance of moon, which a lot of people have speculated about it being the temple that we see within the Shangri-La loading screen. I don't know if that is true or not, but I know a lot of people have discussed it. So could during the eclipse Shangri-La move to the moon? If so, what on earth is going on? This just does not make any sense, and it doesn't correlate to what we see within Shangri-La either. It doesn't correlate to what we see within the original within Black Ops 1 or what we see within the Black Ops 3 Zombies Chronicles version. Now I have a theory. What if when you go back in time during the eclipse, not only do you go back in time and you move location, but you move to a location that doesn't theoretically exist. You instead move to a location that is a combination of tons of different areas merging into one. Therefore, when you enter the eclipse, you could be on Earth, you could be on the moon, and you could be on Mars at the same time. And other areas as well. What if it's something similar to Revelations, where it's just all of these places merged into one during the eclipse? This is a wild theory, but it's something that I was thinking about, and if you honestly think about it, it's something that could explain everyone's arguments, because there are tons of arguments for it still being on the Earth even during the eclipse. There's tons of evidence towards it being on Mars during the eclipse, and now there's even evidence towards it being on the moon. What if all of these theories are correct? What if it's in all of the places at the same time? Again, Brock and Gary were looking for a temple to prove the existence of Agartha. Revelations is Agartha, and the Shadow Man broke up the area, and obviously all of the past returned all at once. What if we go to Agartha during the eclipse? And what if it's just all of these different areas merged together somehow? That would explain all of the inconsistencies, and it would explain as to why all of these things don't really add up and they don't make sense. This could just be a wild theory, I don't know, but it's just something that I was thinking about. But regardless, where we go on the original within Black Ops 1 and the Black Ops 3 version seems to be a different place. Again, it could be the same idea, the places could have just merged differently within the original and with the Black Ops 3 version. Obviously, we know that the Zombies Chronicles maps have changed from the originals. We now have the Gobblegum machines, we have new Dr. Monty radios, we have the Samantha Easter eggs, we now see the Shadow Man on Ascension, so there's tons of things that have changed, which suggests that these maps could be occurring in a new cycle. So definitely Shangri-La could have changed from the original. Now another theory that I was having is that maybe Zombies Chronicles is not occurring in another cycle. What if we're in Samantha's head? What if she's recalling on these events? And that's why we now hear Dr. Monty talk through the radios as if it's Dr. Monty explaining these events to her within the house. We know that Samantha has some sort of etherical energy where her mind becomes reality. It would explain why we see the Shadow Man on Ascension, which again doesn't make sense from a storyline perspective, as she's imagining him, so it becomes a reality. As well as the fact that we now have these Samantha Easter eggs on all of the maps, and it would explain why things like the moon are completely changing during the eclipse on Shangri-La. It may be the idea of breaking the fourth wall. Obviously, a lot of us have thought that it was on Mars, so maybe this idea is interjected within her head, and she's imagining it that way. I don't know, I'm running with some crazy ideas right now, but let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know if any of this made sense to you. If you think I'm completely off the ball, let me know. I mean, we're all entitled to our own opinions. Just be civil and make sure to leave your thoughts down below and provide evidence to your thoughts. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not the latest and greatest Black Ops 3 Zombies news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.